Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Suranjali Seal, and like I always say, if you are somebody that loves literature and is all about literature, then this is the channel for you. In our video today, we're going to talk about the 3 C's as we find them in literature, and they are the concepts of climax, anti-climax, and contrast. Now, these are words that we have seldom and most often actually heard in our day-to-day lives, but we have to understand what each of them actually mean, and we're going to do just that in this video today. So, without any further ado, let's get right into it. So first of all, we're going to talk about the concept of climax, and I've already done this in heavy detail in my Aristotle video. If you've watched the video on tragedy that I did with regards to Aristotle, then this should be really crystal clear for you. We've done tragedy in detail, right? The entire pyramid structure, rising action, climax, falling action, catharsis, everything we have done in that video in detail. And I've also taken actual quotes from the text itself and explained everything in crisp detail actually in the other video. So if you've watched that video, then this should be really clear and easy for you to understand now. And if you haven't watched the video, make sure you do so, then everything else will be easier for you to understand. Now, having said that, this is a recap video, so I'm going to mention everything, okay, here and there. We've talked about anagnorisis, we've talked about peripeteia, we've talked about character versus plot, we've talked about character versus action. Then we've also talked about, rising action. We've talked about the climax, then the falling action, catharsis, the different kinds of plot. I mean, the structure of a plot in detail. We've done that. So what makes a successful plot? All of that we have dealt with in the Aristotle video. So make sure you watch that for a better clarity. Here again, we're going to talk about specifically only about the climax. Now, climax also features in Aristotle's tragic plot structure, and that's where we actually get the concept of climax. Now, what is climax? Usually, most often, okay, this was a common misconception for me also when I was younger, that climax means the end of a movie, or it means the climax means the end of a story. So this is something that even I had this misconception before, and now of course it's clear. What we know is that climax is not the end of the story, but it's actually features somewhere in the middle of the story. Climax is not the end, but it features somewhere in the middle. And how in the middle, I'll tell you. You'll have the rising action, what is a storyline? Storyline is like you have the main conflict. The main conflict of a story is there. Say, today I'm writing about a love story, okay? I'm giving a very cliche example, but just for the sake of example I'm giving. I'm writing a love story today. Boy and girl love each other, but the parents don't understand. I mean, the parents are not okay with that match, okay? The parents are against the match. So what is the conflict? The entire storyline is how these two come together. So the main conflict is the parents. They are not agreeing to the match. Okay, that's the main conflict. So how will the rising action be? Rising action will be you introduce the boy and girl, and then you introduce the parents. Then you make them meet each other. The boy and girl meet each other. They fall in love. And there'll be a point in time when the parents find out. The parents find out that the boy and the girl love each other, and then the conflict is set. Then you have the falling action. The falling action is the parents try to separate them. The boy and girl go after each other, no matter what, they want to be with each other. And then finally, catharsis, the resolution of the conflict. Okay, it will give you this feeling of sigh. Okay, we're done. Okay, that resolution of conflict. Okay, towards the end, it's catharsis at the end, release of that tension. No, so what I'm trying to tell you over here, that conflict, which is introduced, and that turning point where the parents find out, and the rest of the movie is about what? About how they fight for each other. The rest of the movie is that turning point, right, where the tension is like going high, and finally you understand that the parents found out and now they don't want them to be together. That turning point is the climax. It is the highest point in the play. It is the highest point in which the tension, right, like right from the beginning, you introduce the boy, girl, the principles, the family structure, the mentality of the parents, all of that is introduced, and that turning point where, the secret is revealed that they love each other, and then the rest of the story is about what? How they fight for each other. So that turning point after which the falling action takes place is actually the climax. So climax is not the end of the play. It's actually the middle. It actually features, it's the highest point of tension in any play, even in a work of literature, is the highest point of tension. So that is what a climax is. So let us just look at the concrete definition. See, if you have watched the Aristotle video, I've given a movie, Cruella. I remember Cruella was the movie that I employed to actually explain to you what climax is. what Aristotle's tragic plot structure is. So if you remember that, this should be very, very clear to you. So let's just look at the concrete definition. Within literature, the climax is the most intense moment within a story, marking the turning point for the protagonist as they confront the main conflict. See, the main conflict, that they cannot be together. That's the main conflict. So it's a turning point in a play. A climax is when the tension within a scene builds to its highest point. It's the most exciting moment. You know, after that, the falling action, that, you know, the last part where the boy and girl meet each other, you might say that that is also an exciting moment, right? That the boy and girl finally get to be with each other. But no, that is the release of tension. Like, you're okay, fine, done. That's the conclusion. That yes, okay, done. But the most exciting moment, when you're actually biting your nails, okay, what's going to happen, what's going to happen, that's the highest point in the play. It usually, I'm again using the word usually, features in the middle of the play. So the climax is not the end, but it is the middle. It features in the middle of the play. It is the turning point within the play. It is the highest point within the play. It's after which the falling action takes place. Okay, it is that intense highest moment of excitement for the audience, okay, over there. So I hope that this is clear. Now we have to understand, what do we mean by tension. Tension is not that, okay, I'm taking tension, I can't handle this pressure anymore. That is our day-to-day life tension. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about, in literature terms, what does tension mean? Whenever we say that this whole plot is building up tension, what does tension mean? Let's just look at that. Tension is a growing sense of expectation within the drama, a feeling that the story is building up towards something exciting happening. So you are actually building up tension, not that I can't take this anymore, not that tension, not basically not our day-to-day life tension, but in literature it is like you're building up to something. Tension is like, you introduce a boy and girl, you start liking them, you like the characters, they're likable characters, then you introduce the parents, tension builds, that you come to know the mentality of the parents, whether they have conservative views, whether they're liberal but they just don't like each other. You know, when the conflict is building, your tension is also building, that okay, what's going to happen next, and then you anticipate that there'll be a point in time that what if these two get caught, what if the parents catch these two, then what will happen? You know, the tension is building, and finally when they actually, that highest point, when that conflict happens, right, that no, you cannot be with each other, that tension builds up to its highest point. After that, you just witness a falling action, you witness till the conclusion, you know, and then catharsis. So this is climax, okay, climax, and this is tension. Tension is that building up of expectation, that what is going to happen, what if this happens, and if this happens, how are they going to handle it? You know, it's building up that tension, that expectation of the plot. You know, what you're expecting from the plot as a audience is actually building up as you move forward in the play or in any work of literature, as you move forward. So this is the concept of climax and tension, okay. Within I'm not going to dive more deeper than this. Peripeteia, anagnorisis, I talked about catharsis, denouement, I've talked about all of these, character versus action and all, everything, okay. 6 elements of tragedy, and Aristotle's concept of tragedy, and Aristotle's tragic plot structure in detail in my Aristotle videos. So if you haven't watched them, please do give them a read. And in general, if you talk about the concept of climax, this is what it actually means. So now we're going to move on to the next concept, which is its opposite, anti-climax. So before I get into the explanation of anti-climax, I just want to say that I was actually editing the video today, and I figured that the first part of anti-climax, what I had recorded, actually wasn't saved, or I don't know, was there a glitch in the editing process or what? It's just not there. The video begins from half of where it begins from half of the video. So I had to re-record this entire lecture. I mean, not entire lecture, this part of anti-climax again. So I'll just explain it again, and it'll be added to the main video. So just thank you for bearing with me. So I'll explain anti-climax. What is anti-climax? Now, climax, like I said, that it is the highest point in a play. It is the highest point, or the most, or the turning point in a play, after which the falling action takes place. Now, I'll just give an example. Continuing from the example that I have given about the boy and girl, they love each other, and you know, the falling action is about how they want to fight for their love, how they want to be with each other, how they end up being with each other. That's the rest of the falling action, that's the rest of the story. Now imagine What if the parents are against the match? The parents say, I don't want my children to be with, I don't want my son to be with the girl. And the girl's parents say that I don't want my child or my daughter to be with the guy. Suppose this happens and both the boy and the girl say, okay, we'll marry somebody else. So you see, that is not what you expect. That's not normal behavior, or that's not true love. That's not how you expect the two protagonists to behave. You would expect that the girl will fight for the boy's love and the boy will likewise fight for his girl's love. But instead, what if the two protagonists, the boy and girl, they listen to their parents? You know, the tension builds up to a point where the parents find out and they don't agree to the match, and the boy and girl are like, okay, fine, we won't marry each other. So you see, there's a sudden drop after that high building of tension. Okay, you build the tension, a lot of expectations, a lot of drama, and then suddenly there's a drop. Okay, that drop is anti-climax. You expect something, but the exact opposite happens. Your expectations are kind of deflated. You know, like a balloon, when you actually blow into a balloon or you inflate a balloon, it expands, right? You expand a balloon, and you would expect that the balloon, because of the air that you're filling into it, you would expect that the balloon will burst, the balloon will pop. But instead of that, it deflates. You know, all the air comes out again. So it deflates. That deflation is anticlimax. Sometimes we think that either climax happens or anticlimax happens, but usually anticlimax happens after the climax. So you might say that, okay, climax is the highest point in the play and anticlimax is a drop. No, climax takes place. Your expectations is built up and built up and built up to a point where you feel like, okay, this is the turning point. This is the point after which these two protagonists will fight for each other. This is after which the falling action will take place. But instead of that, a drop happens. That is anticlimax. So let us just look at the definition once. So an anticlimax is the release of tension. It happens after the tension has reached its highest point and then suddenly drops. The tension has reached its highest point. That means climax has taken place and then there's a drop. There's a complete reversal, or not reversal of situation, there's a complete drop in the expectations. You were expecting something, something else has happened. Then an anticlimax can occur in a single sentence, a scene, or a large literary plot. It's a figure of speech that involves a series of words, phrases, or clauses that are presented in descending order of importance. Descending order of importance, okay? It can take place in a scene, an entire scene, like I said, you know, you would have the plot building up and suddenly there's a drop. It can happen in a line, like you're saying a lot of big things and suddenly you say something which is not important. That is also anticlimax. And then you have words and phrases. Anything can be anticlimax if there's a sudden drop. You're expecting something, you're anticipating something, and then there's a drop. Okay, in the whole scene, in the whole mood, in the whole expectation, it's a complete drop. So you have the effect is to create a sense of disappointed expectation or deflated suspense. That is disappointed expectation. You expected them to fight for each other. Now they don't want to fight for each other. So you're disappointed as an audience. So like I said, the 3 C's are for impact. They impact the audience, okay, and the emotions. Then you have deflated suspense. What is deflated suspense? That, you know, the suspense builds up to a point where later you would want the resolution, right? But it deflates. The suspense is built up and then there's a drop. So this is anticlimax, a figure of speech that consists of the usually sudden transition in discourse from a significant idea to a trivial one or a ludicrous one. A significant idea, a complete conflict, a complete build up of tension, and then you have a ludicrous change. You have a very a drop, like I said. A very trivial idea is then touched upon suddenly. So it actually is done to impact the audience, your reaction. So that is what an anticlimax is. Sometimes, you know, we confuse the fact that, okay, anticlimax and climax, you know, either anticlimax will happen or climax will happen. But usually after climax, anticlimax takes place. You come up to this highest point and then there's a drop. So, you know, in Alexander Pope's The Rape of the Lock uses anticlimax liberally. An example is, "Hear thou, great Anna, whom 3 realms obey, does sometimes counsel take and sometimes tea." So you see, he's talking about this person, Anna, who the 3 realms obey. The 3 realms, okay, obey her. She takes counsel, that is, she takes advice, she takes counsel, she takes ideas from people, and sometimes tea. So, you know, it is unimportant. You don't have to mention whether she takes tea or not, whether she drinks tea or not, because you, previously, you're actually talking about something big. Okay, you're talking about the fact that, you know, Anna is so great. The three realms obey her. She takes counsel, she takes advice, and sometimes tea. So there's a drop. There's a drop in the order of importance, right? So this is what anticlimax actually is. So I'm going to actually merge the videos together now. I'm really sorry for the inconvenience. I had to re-record it because the first part of the video gave me problems while editing. So now we're going to continue from here. I'll just merge the two videos. So thank you for bearing with me. So this is anticlimax, you know, it is for the sake of impact, for the sake of the audience only. Now, if you take H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds, I think you've heard of the movie. It's a science fiction novel. The War of the Worlds is an excellent example of a wide-scale plot anticlimax. Now, you can read this on your own. It's on the screen only. But I'll explain to you. There's a Martian invasion. Okay, there's movies also that have been inspired by H.G. Wells' War of the Worlds, right? So there's a Martian invasion. Earth has been taken over. The protagonist fights against the Martian. Okay, when things get out of hand, it's successful. Okay, the invasion of Earth is successful by the Martians, and now the you know, protagonist, okay, his mental trauma continues because it's not a pretty scene within the Earth, right? There are invaders who have taken over Earth, and then he tries to kill himself. He wants to throw himself in front of the Martian machine, and that we expect that to be the end. That yes, he wants no longer wants to go through that trauma anymore, and he tries to kill himself, but he fails. But in the end, you will see that the Martians, no, they are killed not by humans. They are not killed by the protagonist also. They are killed by bacteria. They are killed by earth pathogens. So like virus, bacteria, fungus, all of these things. They're killed by them. So this is a heavy anticlimax. Like when you're building up the plot, you expect that the protagonist will save planet Earth, right? That's the actual thing that we expect. But the drop happens when towards the end, after the climax is reached, right? Like the invasion is successful. So you would expect that the protagonist will save the day. But towards the end, you will see it's simple earth not simple, okay? These are complex earth pathogens, okay, that are deadly, who kill, who cause the death of the Martian invaders, okay? And you will realize that these are things that even human beings cannot control. So it is an excellent example of an anticlimax. You know, what you're expecting, the opposite happens. Now, anticlimax can be categorized into two types. One, arranged in descending order of importance, arranged in ascending order of importance, followed by a sudden shift in the to the most trivial or unimportant detail. Now see, arranged in descending order of importance is that you start with, you know, great Anna takes tea, but she also takes great counsel and all this. It's still anticlimax because, you know, why will you even include something that trivial? But here in the Rape of the Lock, the example that I have used, it is in ascending order. This is ascending order of importance. How? You are saying that thou great Anna whom three realms obey does sometimes counsel take. So this is ascending order of importance followed by a sudden shift to the trivial or unimportant detail. Trivial or unimportant detail, sometimes she takes tea. So you see, you have either you'll go from something trivial to the important one, or you'll go to something important to the trivial one. So it can be ascending or descending order of importance. So this is anticlimax. So I hope that this is clear. Just remember that anticlimax is a sudden drop in action. What you're expecting, something else happens. Okay, it is for the sake of impact, and it usually happens after the climax. The highest point of the play or the highest point of tension is reached, and after that there's a sudden drop. So there's this deflation that takes place of the entire thing. So this is anticlimax. Now we're going to move on to the last part, which is the concept of contrast. Now let us have a look at the concept of contrast and what does it actually mean. On the surface, it seems very easy, but there are also subcategories of contrast. There are also relations to contrast which we have to understand, and these are pretty interesting, okay? So contrast is a marked difference between two or more things placed side by side for dramatic effect. So when two opposing things are placed next to each other, the impact is strengthened. Now let's just imagine this. There's a person, okay, who is well dressed, has a Gucci or Prada bag in her hand, and is, you know, chewing on burgers. This is just a picture. I'm just giving a picture, okay? standing nearby the street and she's enjoying and talking to people. Okay, this is her aura. Just next to her on the street itself is a child who is homeless, does not have proper clothes on, is wearing rags. Okay, not wearing proper clothes, also rags. This person is a beggar asking for money. When you see both of them standing side by side in the street, you actually question life. You feel grateful for what you have in life, because that highlights to the point that we are so blessed that we have this much also in life. Is a lot, actually. It gives us room to ponder upon how thankful we should be for the life that we actually have, for all that we have, for the friends, family and things that we have in life, because many people don't have or are not blessed with such things. So you see the contrast and you're immediately thankful, you're immediately grateful. And why are you grateful? Because that contrast strengthens the impact, right? Impact of that teaching, that learning, that you should be grateful for whatever you have in life. So, sometimes we take many things for granted, and then suddenly you see something and you realize that, okay, it has an impact on you. As literature students also, we have actually heard about these concepts in our classrooms, but sometimes we just overlook them. So we're just going to look at what are these different kinds of devices that employ contrast for impact, for better impact. These are literary devices. Okay, the first one is juxtaposition. This is something which we use heavily, right, in our day-to-day lives. Juxtaposition is placing two things side by side to show contrast. Two things side by side to show contrast. The juxtaposition between this woman in red and the boy in rags, the juxtaposition was so giving an impact that was so striking that it hit the hearts of all the people who were looking at them. This woman in red, the one with the Gucci and Prada bag, and the kid with rags on, the juxtaposition, the difference, the contrast between the two. Similarly, these are examples of juxtaposition. Okay, war and peace. Then you have humanity and technology. You place them side by side, these ideas, these concepts, these things side by side, and you will understand the difference. It will highlight the point to us. Okay, so then you have in Frankenstein, the creature's elegant speech contrasts with its deformed features and strength. So in Frankenstein, the monster, he actually learns from the family when he's hiding. He learns English from the family that he's hiding in the house of. I'm not going to go into the details, but yeah, so Frankenstein learns English and he's very refined in his speech, but that is a complete contrast with his bodily appearance and physical strength. So, the juxtaposition between his refinement and his inward qualities and his outward appearance, the juxtaposition makes him even more striking. And that's why we have a lot of pity for the monster also, because there are so many possibilities for him, but people judge him from his outside looks, right? So that's why he's alone. There's just one of a kind of the monster, right? There's no other monster. He's just one of a kind and he's lonely. So that's why we have a lot more sympathy for the monster. Now you have oxymoron, something which we also know in literature, very, very famous, widely celebrated. Oxymoron, putting two contradictory words together, like bittersweet goodbye, deafening silence. You say something to someone you love and that person just keeps quiet. It's deafening, right? You're like, it's better you just tell me whatever you're feeling, just tell it to me, don't keep quiet. So deafening silence, it makes you uncomfortable. So deafening and silence is silence. You're not saying anything, but you're using those two opposite words, deafening silence, bittersweet goodbye, bittersweet. These are contradictory words put together. Then you have paradox. Paradox is a statement that contradicts itself. Here I'm not going to talk about paradox anymore. If you have not checked out my Aristotle video, make sure you check it out. I'm not going to go into the details here. I've given one whole video on the idea of paradox itself only. So make sure you check that video out. Now for paradox, I'll just remind you, all I know is that I know nothing. Remember Aristotle's statement that I said? So this is an example of a paradox, okay? It is a contradictory statement. Whatever you're saying in this statement, it contradicts itself. All I know is that I know nothing. So make sure you watch the other video. Now let's talk about antitheses. Putting two opposing ideas or concepts together. You're putting two opposing ideas or concepts together. Now see, juxtaposition is what? Placing two things side by side, which is a contrast. Placing two contrasting ideas side by side for impact. Antithesis, putting two opposing ideas or concepts together. So somewhere this is similar, right? You'll think that, okay, juxtaposition and antithesis sound similar. So what is the difference? So let us just understand these two properly. Juxtaposition means placing two objects side by side to highlight their difference. So you put night and day, you put war and peace, you put two ideas side by side, and you are saying good and evil. These are things that will impact. The contrast will highlight to you the lesson or the impact or the moral that you're trying to impart. So you have these two ideas put side by side, they're close together, night and day, good and evil, close together. You're putting these opposing ideas side by side. Antithesis is different. Antithesis is like a whole sentence. It's a grammatical structure. Antithesis is longer. It's not just about putting ideas, okay? It is about one whole sentence, and usually it's divided or it's separated by a comma. Now, I'll just say antithesis is a figure of speech that juxtaposes two opposing ideas, usually in parallel grammatical structures. So, juxtaposition is that you put two separate ideas together. Antithesis also is like juxtaposition, but it's a grammatical structure. It's longer, okay? Now, they contain compound sentences with the two independent clauses. Compound sentences, and comma, you join the two sentences together. Those are compound sentences. So, you have two sentences joined together by and or comma or something, okay? You compile them together, compound them together. Compound sentences, and they with two independent clauses. Independent clauses as in sentence 1 and sentence 2 are not the same, but you join them together. The independent sentences, you join them together with a comma. But the two sentences, this and this, are contrast to each other, contrasting ideas. So for juxtaposition, it's two different ideas placed side by side, night and day, good and evil, war and peace, okay, put together side by side. For antithesis, it's compounding sentences put together side by side with a comma or an and, two sentences, independent sentences put together. These are contrasting ideas. These are longer. So you have, they are separated by a comma or a semicolon, or in most cases. In most cases, this is the structure. So let's look at the example. When you look at the example, you realize how easy the concept is. Neil Armstrong had said, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind." So you see, these are independent sentences. One giant leap for mankind, okay? One small step for a man. And you are actually joining these two together. Small step, giant leap. These are contrast. These are juxtaposition, right? Contrasting ideas, long grammatical structure, separated by a comma. Independent sentences brought together. So that's one small step for a man and one giant leap for mankind. So this is one of the most famous quotes, okay, that we know in our world today. So this is Neil Armstrong's, that's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind. And Charles Dickens's, from literature I've given one. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. Speech is silver, but silence is gold. So silver and gold, juxtaposition, different, but you put together in a big sentence that becomes antithesis. Big grammatical sentence separated by a comma. You compound sentences, you bring two different sentences together with a comma or a semicolon. And here in Charles Dickens, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. Best and worst opposite to each other. Then you have, it was the age of wisdom, it was the age of foolishness. Age of wisdom, age of foolishness, different. The juxtaposition is there, but it's a grammatical structure. It's not just simply night and day, war and peace and the like. It is more elaborate. So you don't have just night and day, war and peace, and humanity versus humanity and technology, not versus. Humanity and technology is not just like that. These are long sentences, long grammatical structures. So these are long sentences, those are short, okay? So those are short. These are basically what we know from literature. we come across these things in our day-to-day lives as literature students, but sometimes we get confused, right? Even I had that whole phase of the whole confusion thing going on regarding some of the literary terms and devices, and I really hope that my videos are being of help to you. So this is it for today's video, guys. I really hope that you have enjoyed the video and you have learned something interesting and new today. And having said that, I really hope that you stay healthy and happy, and I hope that you are keeping healthy and happy so far, and that my videos have been of help to you, that you're enjoying the videos. And if you are, then please don't forget to like the video, share the video, and subscribe to my channel for similar content. Until we meet again, I hope you stay healthy and happy. See you in the next one, guys.